G'day, folks. Welcome back to Mondays Down Under on the Talking Pools podcast. My name's Peter, over in sunny but cold Western Australia, joined by Lee in Central Victoria now, I believe, and Shane over in Auckland, New Zealand. How are you both?
Hi, Peter. I'm very well. And yes, I am in cold country, gone from 26 degrees down to a balmy 9. So I wouldn't call it balmy. Actually, it's bloody cold.
Yeah.
I
That's
feel
the
your pain,
daytime
guys.
That's the daytime temperature, 9 degrees.
Yes.
Oh, man, we whinge if that's the minimum first thing in the morning. Wow, that is
Yeah,
cold.
same actually.
Mm.
It's
Yeah.
nippy.
Yes. Yep, absolutely. So, no, I've been dealing with lovely 26-degree days or even sort of mid-20s, but yeah, T-shirt, shorts, quite comfortable. And that's Brisbane winter, so I'm told, and been absolutely beautiful. But yeah, now down in Central Victoria, finished the 3 weeks of filling in for the business owners while they were overseas having a well-earned break. And now I'm down in Central Victoria doing some training with a business, training 5 members of staff. So for the next 3 days. So yeah, well and truly looking forward to that. I really love that part of my job.
Mm. Yeah, it's
What about you?
always like training people up as well. You get someone who knows
Yes.
nothing about pools. That's my preference. And, quite quickly, if they've switched on, quite quickly they'll pick up a lot of stuff. And you think, gee, this is going to take so much load off me.
Yes.
That's a
Yeah,
good thing.
absolutely. Yeah, sure. How are you, Shane, over there? Is it cold in Auckland?
It is, yeah, it is pretty nippy. It's probably about the same temperature as what you were having, Lee. So we're in the peak of winter at the moment. But although this week the sun has been shining, so we've been very lucky in our winter so far. I think it was probably a lot wetter and colder maybe about 6 weeks ago
Mhm.
during autumn. But yeah, I mean, this time of year, you've got to think about, as you guys have talked about, your training. It's
Yep.
that time of year for, upskilling yourself and getting as much refresher courses in, because the season it's around the corner and it'll be up on us very, very soon. So
Yep.
everybody make sure you take your holidays
Yes.
if you are in the Southern Hemisphere. Book in for those
Recharge.
courses. Yeah, recharge your batteries.
Mhm.
Because yeah, it's going to be here sooner rather than later.
It goes faster, I think, every year. I always found our winters seem to get shorter and shorter. Either that or they got busier and busier. Can't complain about that. We do like to have some work to keep going through the coldest months, but we also do need to take the time to take a break, like you say, recharge the batteries for our staff to have a well-earned break. And also it's a great time to, as you say, train, but review your processes, streamline. Let's make improvements for the next season about how we do things. Improve your processes so that next summer can be a little bit easier and not have the pain points that maybe you experienced last summer. So it's a good time to review those sort of things. Absolutely.
Definitely. How about yourself, Peter?
It's quieting down a bit. We don't get much of a very quiet off season. The first couple of years I was in this business, it got absolutely dead during winter, but for the most part. But the big thing for us is when the storms start coming through. We've had a couple of storms. It's too heavy the rain's too heavy to even vacuum a pool because you just can't see the floor of the thing if the rain's too heavy. We also get quite a few thunderstorms, and of course that is strictly no-go. Our policy is very strict. If there's any hint of thunder or lightning, it's down tool. Don't pack them up. Leave them. We can go back to them later. Get inside the vehicle with the windows closed. Unless you can get inside a house, that's the safest place to be.
Well, those long pool poles are just a lightning stick, aren't they?
They are, but it's not just a matter of if you've got a telescopic handle in your hand, stick of aluminium poking up in the air. Even working at a pool or swimming in a pool during a thunderstorm is dangerous. A friend of a friend lost their 8-year-old son swimming during a thunderstorm.
Oh no!
It struck nearby and got the kid in the pool. And
Wow.
I've heard other reports. How well I can verify them varies. In various parts of the world of technicians working on pools and getting, lightning struck nearby and got them. Actually, I think it
Wow.
was very, very early on when I started on talking pools. I actually did an episode, probably in the vault somewhere, on dangers of thunder and lightning to pool technicians.
Well, I'll have to dig that one out of the vault and have a listen.
It was about the third Mondays Down Under episode I ever did. First one was on how to sort out a pool after a bushfire's been through. And then there was one where I couldn't believe how much hatred I got from some people in America in the industry when they were saying there were chlorine shortages. I said, well, why don't you put a salt system on? You'd think I'd suggest that they sacrifice a small child at the altar or something. But just dispelling some of the myths. And I think the third one was on lightning storms. But that was a year and a half ago. Over a year and a half ago now. So
a while ago now, Peter.
I'm sorry?
That was a while ago now then.
Well, it was a while ago. Some ways it seems like 5 minutes ago. It's just like when you have kids. You turn around and they're growing like mushrooms and you think, hang on, where did this time go? Maybe I need a holiday.
Yeah. Well, it's actually, surprisingly, yesterday we realised it's been a year since we sold our business. So, and passed over the reins of the pool shop and service side of our business to a new purchaser. So, it's amazing how time flies. Really. Yep. And the kids seemed tiny yesterday and, just all that crazy stuff. So, but anyway. So, talking about processes, something interesting came to light, and we sort of touched on it prior to this podcast, but the different processes or procedures that different businesses have, and I suppose in my role doing temping and shop coaching and service coaching, that I get to see a few different processes. And I was quite interested to see, the three of us have had a chat. We all sell from bulk chemicals on the most part, and we all have digital scales in our vehicles, in our service vehicles. Obviously, we have measuring jugs as well for liquids, but we weigh our chemicals. And I'm interested to see, and over the previous years of talking to others at conferences and whatnot, that some people actually still sell by the packet, which really surprised me, because I just don't think they realise what profit margin they're missing out on potentially selling from bulk stores. And then also the ones that do sell from bulk stores but don't weigh their chemicals, which really surprised me.
It saves a bit of time. It's quicker. It's easier. I place a premium on accuracy.
Well, accuracy, the effect on the water, and also your bottom, your profitability from your chemical quantities that you're selling. You want to make sure that your stock control is good and all of that sort of thing. Now, Shane, I know prior to you owning your business, you worked for another business, yes?
Yeah.
What did they do?
There was no scales on board either of the two businesses that I worked for. So it was basically, I guess you could call it free pouring, free measuring, But I mean, the owners of the business, they didn't bat a blind eye to it, it was just the thing that they did. And you can still see it to a lot of people on the road, sole traders on the road. There is a couple of my friends which are in the industry. They do have scales like ourselves, but it's just not, I don't know. I can't speak as an overall, but I don't think it's a very it's just not a thing that's really well legislated in a lot of bigger companies. But it's strange because it should be, because if you've got 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 pounds on the road, and you are free pouring or free measuring, that's going to mount up over the months, over the year, and it's going to be a huge saving that they could have.
Yes. Yeah,
So it makes sense
absolutely.
to do it.
And I think it's even more important in this day and age where we're getting plunge pools in backyards, swim spas, those sort of ones, the hot and cold pools, like the small ones that we're seeing more and more of. And because they're small volume, accuracy is absolutely paramount. Like anybody who's tested the water in a spa, like it's 1,000 litres on average, new standard spa size. And they do take such minute amount of chemicals, like it's 80 grams of sodium bicarbonate, or it's 15 grams of chlorine, or 15 grams of dry acid. And you can't free pour 15 grams.
Not accurately.
No. And then you get to something like sodium thiosulfate, chlorine remover, and something like that really needs to be accurately measured. I have been to a business that they don't have scales, and yet they do put sodium thiosulfate in, and an extra 100 grams of sodium thiosulfate can make a big difference to the chlorine level in a pool if you are very finely counting your chlorine parts per million. So it's something that concerns me. And I think then you get to the people that are using jugs. And look, admittedly, you can get a jug, you can weigh a chemical, you can mark where, and I remember, I think it was 1 kilo of buffer sodium bicarbonate was about 800 mils on a measuring jug. I remember doing that calculation once before, but it depends on the density of the product.
I normally buy 20 or 25 kilo bags of most of these chemicals. Because we commonly use like your buffer, your calcium, things like that. And we've got 10-litre buckets. What's that? 2.5 gallon buckets that I pour them into. Now, the problem is in the bag, it's quite dense, and you cut it open. As it goes in, air gets mixed up with it and it fluffs up. Same as, if you're digging a hole for a pool, for example, a lot less volume comes out of the ground than you end up with in the back of the truck.
Yes.
So it's all fluffed up, but then as you drive and you get vibrations from the road, it'll settle it quite a bit. And that's not something that I would ever, rely on a volume measurement for.
No.
Calcium chloride, I do know that the brand we use, it's the we can get two different types here. One is a little pellet, little spheres. The other is flaked, so big flakes of it, and or uneven size flakes. The flakes I would never trust to sight or measuring by volume on that. The little pellets, though, the little spheres, I know that for my brand, 1 kilo is 1 litre.
Right.
So that's the only thing. But when I open a new bag of it, I recheck. To see if something's changed.
Just out of curiosity with that one, Peter, do you have a preferred calcium chloride in regards to the pellets or the flakes?
I haven't noticed much of a difference. I have found that the flakes tend to dissolve a little bit faster because the spheres are equal thickness and the flakes are much thinner. Or a lot of the flakes are much thinner. It tends to dissolve a bit quicker.
Yep.
I mean, with that, assuming decent water temperature, you can actually throw it in on the surface and it's dissolved before it's hit the bottom.
Wow.
So the pre-dissolving that's another point. Pre-dissolving chemicals. Some people, doesn't matter what it is, they'll just work the chemicals straight in.
Yep.
A lot of them I much prefer to pre-dissolve.
Our policy was everything was pre-dissolved. The only thing we didn't really pre-dissolve, because it doesn't really pre-dissolve, is stabilizer, cyanuric acid.
Yeah.
You can get, and that's another one that you can get in a couple of different grades, I suppose, or granulars forms. You can get your really thin, fine powder.
Yep.
And then you can get your coarser granule stabilizer. And so, yeah, again, the volume side of things, that plays havoc with estimating from a volume capacity. You're better off to weigh it. But that one we actually always found very slow to dissolve, as stabilizer typically is.
Yeah.
And we would add that. That was the one chemical that I would let the service technicians actually put into the skimmer box, mixed with the water in a slurry and slowly poured into the skimmer. Obviously, they would have backwashed or cleaned the filter prior to that, because we do want it to sit in the filter and dissolve in the filter. That's the whole point of putting it in there, because, yeah, it was something that you couldn't add to the pool and not it would land on the bottom and there was no dissolving it. It wouldn't move. So that's why I allowed it to go through the skimmer box.
Yeah, a couple of other points on the stabilizer. First of all, we can also get it here in tablet form.
Yep.
Typically about a 500-gram tablet or something, I think. And yeah, it's just like opening up a 2-kilo packet, a 4-pound pack of chemical and using the whole thing. You've got to make sure that that's the correct amount. I'm also not a big fan of putting tablets of any type in the skimmer box, except for some clarifier tablets.
Yes.
There are some of those which are fine. You've also got to watch out with the size and condition of the filter before adding powdered stabilizer or granular stabilizer to the skimmer. If the filter's badly clogged and it suddenly stops all the flow, then that can cause problems. And I have seen the result of someone doing that. Basically, a particular type of cartridge filter had a problem with splitting, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yes.
These are made from several cylinders of plastic that are basically glued or welded, however they do it, on top of each other to get various heights, depending on which model in the range it is. And they dumped a whole heap of stabilizer in there and clogged it. Boom, pump kept going. When something gets blocked, your pump will find the weakest point, and in this case, it was the filter tank.
Yes. Yeah. No, and that's like we used to do it in a slurry, like in a water mix, as much as you can. Like trying to keep it in, like not solution because it doesn't dissolve, but keep it in motion in the water and slowly pour it in. And you'd pour a bit in, and then you'd let it sit, and water would go through, and then you'd pour a little bit more. So it was doing it slowly. I would never like pour a heap of stabilizer. It sits in the basket like concrete. Like it really, it's horrible. So, and the other thing is you can get it in liquid form. So some suppliers do actually have liquid stabilizer. So that's something else to consider. Particularly great for those centrifugal sand filters that are after the pump, because as we know, they've been quite popular here. The centrifugal filter that goes post-pump and pre-filter, that spins the water and drops the dirt out. Great in theory, but when you're adding a chemical to it, of course, the chemical's going to drop out and sit in the bottom of the centrifugal filter, and there isn't any movement there. So it's not really going to do what the purpose is of putting it in the skimmer and dissolving in the filter, it's not going to get there. So we used to use the liquid stabilizer when the client had a centrifugal filter online.
Another thing I've seen recommended for these, and I know some US technicians, because DE filters are still big over there, they'll actually have a bypass. So
yes,
pump three-way valve going up, so it bypasses the pre-filter.
Yes.
So they can add their DE powder.
Yeah, and look, I would actually suggest that to anybody that's plumbing in a centrifugal filter, is to actually make sure that they do install that bypass, because there is situations where you do need to bypass that filter.
That's a very good point, actually, Lee. Yeah, I've seen quite a few of them out there, and I've never seen a bypass on one ever. So that's a very good point, actually.
Alum is the big one for me. That's something I circulate with the pump, and it'll just get, something like 80% of it gets caught by this pre-filter. But obviously, if you're going to add alum, you remove the filter cartridge or put your MPV on to recirculate. You don't want that stuff gunking up the filter.
No, and I think we've actually had that conversation, haven't we? Because I never added alum other than in tablet form, which I love the little alum sulfate tablets. I think they're awesome. But you're talking about actually adding powdered alum to the skimmer box, yes?
Yeah.
See, we never used to do that. We actually spread it across the top of the surface of the pool with a watering can, with the pool turned off, and actually allowed it to settle through the water and sink to the bottom, and found that extremely effective without actually sending it through the filtration system. So, just a different way of doing it.
I have a honing dust recovery coming up on Tuesday, so I'll give that one a try.
Watering can, and watering can, mix the alum in water and in the watering can, and sprinkle it just like you're showering, and try and broadcast it as much as you can over the pool, and it's really effective.
See, I do a similar thing with PAC, the liquid flock, polymerized alum.
Yep.
I'll normally have a garden sprayer, and I spray it with that. It doesn't work on a windy day.
Yep.
Watering can, but it's hard to reach the middle of the pool in some cases.
And see, PAC, I actually do the opposite. So I actually put that in and let that let that circulate with the cartridge out or the filter on bypass. And I did it that way. So you and I actually do things around the opposite way, but we both get the same result.
It's the east side and the west side for you, isn't it?
And never the twain shall meet.
No. Well, it's interesting seeing, and that, I suppose that's what brought around today's conversation, was the weighing of chemicals and that sort of thing. It's different. It's good to see what other people do. Like if it works for you, then it works for you. And actually learning and seeing how other people do things, you can always pick something up, even after 25 years.
Yeah. But you mentioned earlier about the small packets, 2 kilos or pounds, for the sake of this discussion. Just looking up one of my main chemical supplier, and what's a good one? Here we go. Calcium chloride. There is about a 60% per kilo, per unit of weight, 60% more to buy it in 2 kilos rather than 20 kilos.
Absolutely.
Now, calcium is a chemical, we go through tons of it a year. Why wouldn't you want to save 60%? It takes maybe a little bit longer on site. We're talking, I don't know, 15 seconds, 20 seconds more to weigh it out.
But what you gain in profit is massive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes we use small packets or small bottles, soda ash, because we use it so here.
That's it.
And I don't really need, buckets of the stuff sitting around the workshop or the vehicle. And also the pack sometimes will have 1 litre bottles of, because I find that's just easier to handle. But keeping the same brand so there's no difference in the chemical that's going to cause a reaction. We'll keep the old bottles, refill them from a 20 litre.
Yes. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
a lot cheaper.
Yep, we did the same thing. So we bought all our liquids. When I say liquids, liquid algicides, liquid clarifiers, cell protectors, different things like that. We would buy in even filter cleaner and degreaser. We would buy that in 20, 25 litre drums and decant into, like, again, like you say, like for like the exact same brand, exact same chemical bottle. So we might buy a box or 2 boxes to give us a dozen or 2 dozen bottles of that particular product, and then we would refill from bulk stores. So exactly the same labeling, exactly the same product, because that's absolutely paramount, of course. But yeah, huge savings. Benefits all round. You can actually sell them to the customer cheaper than they would be buying a litre off the shelf in the shop. So you're the good guy there because you're saving them some money, but in the same respect, you're making a great, even better markup doing that. So it's a win-win. You're winning and they're winning too. So it's good all round.
Got to tell you a funny one about that. Had a customer, did a green pool recovery, sent him his bill, and it had the liquid flock. And he rang me up quite aggressively saying, "Oh, you're ripping me off for chemicals." I said, "How do you figure that?" He said, "I can buy the same thing at the hardware store for $2 less a litre." And I said, "Well, a couple of things on that. First of all, I brought it to you. Try to get your hardware store to bring it and
put it in.
Secondly, have a look." And I know this particular hardware store, not mentioning names, and I know what chemicals they carry. I said, the other thing is the liquid flock that you buy from them is 15% concentrate. The one that I added was 65% concentrate. So
it's huge.
At the end of the day, you've spent a little bit over a quarter as much as you would have there. And he says, "Oh, I didn't realize that." I said, "No, well, that's it." And I haven't dealt with him since. There's enough good customers. You don't have to put up with the bad ones.
And of course, the other benefit of not selling in small packets is you're not adding to landfill. Like, we're all trying to be environmentally conscious these days and reducing our waste and our landfill. It's a great way to do it. Like, every single 2 kilo, you think about every 2 kilo packet you'd have to open in a day that'd end up in landfill. It's just crazy. And some of them are plastic, some of them are cardboard boxes with plastic in them, some of them are plastic jugs, plastic bags. Like, it's all stuff that really, not other than the cardboard, is not really very biodegradable, I wouldn't imagine. So yeah, you're doing the environment a good thing by making a bigger profit too.
How is the soft plastic recycling in Australia? Is that something that you guys do on the east and west coast? In Auckland, there are a few places around which, like the local council, that they'll take it, but they won't recycle the soft plastics. Yep. So you've got to go to a designated area which, they will take it and they will recycle it. Is that the same on the East Coast and West Coast over there?
I think a lot of people like to fly that. We're environmentally friendly. We're flying that recycle flag, but whether the council actually does anything proactive with that plastic is a whole nother kettle of fish.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I think probably most councils in Australia are not equipped to handle that environmental recycling procedure.
Especially when you've then got potentially residue from chemicals on there.
Yes. Yeah, true.
That's
a big no-no.
It's like when people throw out, I've had customers where first-time customers, I've been there and said, right, all your chemicals here, they're not stored safely. You know, I can see that your Cal Hypo bucket's split open because it's got moisture in it and it's expanded, and it's just, no, you got to get rid of it.
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
throw it in the rubbish bin. No, the last thing you want to do is throw in all this mix of chemicals in the rubbish bin, unless you want to be, picking pieces of the bin itself up from down the street when it blows up.
Yeah.
But councils here often have facilities for disposing of old pool chemicals and household chemicals.
Yeah.
And a few of them will accept it for free just because they don't want people,
Yeah.
blowing up a rubbish truck.
No, our local council did have chemical waste days. So usually only a couple of times a year where you could actually dispose of chemical waste, or whether it be partially leftover paint tins and things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is a good thing, but unfortunately it probably isn't frequent enough for people to actively participate in it. They're probably more likely just to throw it in the bin and and ignore that they're not supposed to do that. But I did like when I asked someone once why they didn't use why they sold in 2 kilo or 4 kilo packets. They said that it was obviously easy. They didn't have to weigh it. But the thing is, there's excess. So they're either underdosing the pool slightly or overdosing the pool slightly, or because like if the pool needs 1.5 kilos of something and you've got a 2 kilo pack, you're going to chuck the 2 kilos in. But and I suppose if you've need 3 kilos of something, you've either put in a 2 kilo pack or a 4 kilo pack. So they're going to get overdosed or underdosed, one or the other.
Or
so
it's with an open chemical container.
Or the customers being left over. And look, the customers love the fact that, or most of them do, they don't want chemicals laying around. Like that's why they get you in on a regular basis, so they don't have to deal with those half-contained packets still in their pool shed. Sometimes it's good to leave customers with some acid or some chlorine or something like that they can use from time to time, for sure. But no, that's part of the convenience of getting your pool serviced, is to actually have somebody else who takes care of that hassle for you. It's the whole point. But the other bite back that I had was digital scales are expensive, and it's another tool that we've got to keep in the vehicle. We used to just go to our local kitchen retailer, kitchen appliance retailer. There's quite a few cheap ones, budget ones around, and just buy digital scales when they're on special. And then I'd stick half a dozen sets of scales away in the shop, and if the service technicians had one that was defective or broken down or stopped giving out the readings, we'd just give them a new one. And you know what? Some of them had a 12-month or a 2-year warranty on them, so I used to take them back to the shop.
Smartly.
Get a new set. I think they wondered why I was going through so many scales.
Man, this woman does a lot of baking.
What's all this white substance on the top of the scales?
But yeah, supermarket, Coles, Woolies, something like that. Digital scales, also digital instant read thermometers.
Yeah,
that's another thing I get there. Or more accurately, get the wife to get there. And of course, plastic measuring jugs for liquids. Always plastic, not glass, because we do not want broken glass in a pool, because it is a nightmare scenario.
Yeah.
And it's not that much effort and the profit from it. And also the professionalism when people see you measuring, and you can say to them honestly, okay, I'm putting the correct amount in your pool. This is exactly what you need.
And we only charge you for what we put in. We only charge you for what you need. We don't sell you anything that you don't need, and people love that. For sure.
Yes.
So there's something for people to review over the winter. If they're not already doing it, give it some thought.
Buy bulk and measure it.
Yep. And look at the profit differences. People who aren't doing it, if you look at the price differences from your chemical companies, like Pete said, between the 2s and the versus the 20s, you will be amazed. And look, we all like to add to our bottom line. So, yeah, let's go for it.
About it.
Mm.
All righty. Let's
Well,
call
thank
it a
you.
wrap for today. Thanks again, guys. Thank you, everyone out there, for listening to us with our little rant. Any questions or queries or topic requests, please send your email through to talkingpools@gmail.com and we'll get onto it. But for the meantime, have a great week. Stay warm over on the East Coast. And yeah, have a good one. Uru.
See ya.
See you later.